paying a visit? Nextdoor. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us from Nextdoor, right next door, is Chief Product Officer Kiran Prasad. Hi, Kiran.
Hi, Fred. How are you doing?
Great. Well, for people who may not already know, Nextdoor is a hyper-local online community. I guess that's an adequate description. Give us the background and overview here.
Yeah, so, background is that really Nextdoor is about a neighborhood network. It's about you sort of connecting to the people around you.
At Nextdoor, we come to work every day to help cultivate a kinder world. We want to make sure that everyone has a neighborhood to rely on.
As human beings, we want anything that gives us that sense of connection.
When we started this company, we felt that technology had an important role to play in bringing communities and neighbors together. We knew that having the support of your neighbors was critical.
The neighbors have been using that Nextdoor app to coordinate evacuations.
You drive through a neighborhood and you see houses and bricks, but really what you have is people, business owners and entrepreneurs.
It's been really cool being able to cheer on your neighbors as they open at the next coffee shop.
Nextdoor evokes a sense of pride in your neighborhood, and we know that people globally are craving for that. It often starts online, but we know that it continues into the real world, and that is the superpower of Nextdoor.
The original story around Nextdoor was actually, we read this book, Bone Green, where the book really talked about people feeling lonely and people feeling like disconnected from the people around them. And that was sort of this endemic thing that was starting to grow. And so, our founders started Nextdoor to really allow people to start to connect with each other, to start to feel like they are part of a community, part of a local community that was the original social network, from back in the day before all the technical and sort of like social networks showed up, is where people sort of went out in their neighborhoods and interacted with the people around them. And, that's kind of what we're focused on now, is really sort of building that kinder world, building that environment where people have a neighborhood that they can really rely on, that they can sort of depend on. And we're seeing it happen kind of in crazy scales at this point. I know, depending on where you live, most of you have probably heard of Nextdoor, because we're in 1 in 3 households in the US at this point right now, and we're in over 11 countries, and over 98% of all the neighborhoods in the US have somebody who's already on Nextdoor. So, we can see that like the neighborhood network, that concept of like bringing the neighborhood back is really happening. It's happening at scale.
How many users do you have today? You mentioned 1 in 3 households. Wow.
Yeah, we're 1 in 3 households in the US. We have over 70 million neighbors on the platform. And, a huge chunk of those neighbors are people like you and me, but a huge chunk of those neighbors are also other types. Like we have neighbors that are small businesses, people who like run the local coffee shop or run the local bakery, or and then we also have local public service organizations like the local fire department, local police department, the local city council, like all of the people and communities that are kind of make up the neighborhood, right? I mean, you probably may not think of your small business as instantly part of your neighborhood, but that's probably where you're going after your Little League game. They're probably the ones that have their brand on your Little League jerseys. So, you really sort of have to combine all the real people and the businesses, as well as like a lot of the public services that are provided to you in each neighborhood.
And you're just a little over a decade old?
Yeah, we're just a little over 10 years old. The first, I think like some evolutions that have happened, the first 5 years was really us trying to figure out how to grow. And so because, a lot of other social networks, they kind of let you invite your friends, let you invite other people on the platform, and that's kind of how you grow. And now you're connected to people in China or in France or in Germany, or maybe the people that you went to school with 15 years ago. And we wanted to really make sure that this wasn't just like another network, but one that really was about the people around you. I mean, the way you introduced it was great. Hyper local, really the neighborhood sort of feel right around you. And so that just took time to kind of build up and get everywhere.
What is the story behind it? The why behind this, how this came to be?
Yeah, the why really kind of started off with, as I said, this book, Bowling Green. The real why came down to a really simple thing, which is, the founders looked around and they were like, look, I feel like I can go online and communicate with people that are all over the world. And I still don't know who the person is that lives next door to me, like literally next door. A lot of neighbors just haven't gone outside, walked over next door and said, hi, my name's Kiran, and started that conversation. In fact, people are had been becoming more and more sort of insular, right? And sort of everybody's on their screen looking towards this sort of separate worlds. And, what we showed is that actually that process, the book shows that, but like we also did some analysis, that process starts to create, a lot of issues for people, just mental health issues, loneliness, and not a sense of feeling really, really connected. And, so we started Nextdoor around that concept of bringing people together and connecting them together. It's actually the core to our strategy. We internally talk about our strategy as an active, valued community. We're trying to really bring people together so that they feel like they can be connected and they don't feel as lonely. They feel like the community is there to support them. And actually, we've seen statistics. It's amazing, which is if people even just have like 6 people that they consider their neighbors, people that they know well, they will, their mental health level rises, their physical health level rises. Now, when those two things happen and you really feel like you're starting to become a part of the neighborhood, there's economic benefits as well. So generally house values increase, test scores for education for kids increase. Really, it just starts to make where you live and who you're around better.
So what are some of the more popular ways in which the site is used today?
Yeah, great question. Our core thing that when we ask neighbors, why do you come to Nextdoor and why are you coming here? They tell me, help me connect to the neighborhoods, help me connect to all the neighborhoods that matter to me so I can belong. So what does that really mean? Well, right now Nextdoor is very much about the neighborhood you live in. But one of the big things that we've learned is that neighbors actually want to be part of more than one neighborhood. Because although they live in one neighborhood, they typically work in a different neighborhood, or their parents live in another neighborhood, or they tend to drive 15 minutes to this other neighborhood to go out to dinner on a regular basis. And so one of the key things we've heard is we want to be part of more neighborhoods. The second thing is they really want to connect to those neighborhoods so that they can belong. They want to feel like an insider. They want to feel like they, that everybody knows them and they know everybody, maybe the old Cheers moniker, like that sense of belonging. But if you look on the platform and you say, okay, well, great, I understand what they're saying. What are they actually doing on the platform? It really comes down to 3 major use cases. One is they're coming on to exchange goods and services. So what does that mean? Well, I have an old couch and I bought a new one. I need to get rid of it because somebody else might want to buy it. So selling used goods and buying used goods is a big one. Second one is really getting recommendations for services. So think like I need an electrician because my lights went out, or I need a plumber to fix something. So it's really around those exchanging goods and services so that somebody can come help you. Category 2 is really discussing local information. So there's a new tax law that's been passed, or like in San Francisco, the homeless situation up in San Francisco is a really key topic that seems to come up on the platform pretty regularly. And then category 3 is something around really mobilizing to make change for the local community. So this is like, I'm trying to raise money for the local football team, or I'm trying to get everybody together at the local park. Let's go clean it up, or things to kind of mobilize the community and change the community for the better in some way, right? So these are kind of the three primary things that people do on the platform. They, exchange goods and services. They discuss like local information about what's happening, and then they mobilize to try to help the community become better.
I see a lot of that in going on the site, but are there ways people are using Nextdoor that surprise you maybe in the team there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like I'm constantly surprised. I'll call out a couple of cases that are probably small right now, but they're, these sparks that just always really surprise me. So I think some of the smaller use cases, but are always surprising, is really jobs. I think we're going through a recession right now. A lot of people are looking for extra money, side hustles to try to make something. And so there's a lot of people out there that are looking for jobs on the platform. So they'll, especially college students who come home, constantly I'll see the post like, I'm home for 3 months. I can pretty much fix anything, or I know how to use computers. So if you want me to set your computer up, I can do it. Or, I can babysit, or I can dog walk. So you have a lot of the younger generation really starting to come onto the platform to find jobs, to find these little side gigs to help them, in a tough time, or, in between transitions of their lives. So like, that's a simple one. One that's another one that is really about people kind of getting opportunity and scaling out businesses. So during COVID, there's this really great story of, and after maybe we can follow up with some information about the specific person's name. It kind of, I'm missing it right now, but he kind of lost his job, and he started baking in his kitchen, and he started making bread and giving it out to his neighbors. His neighbors are like, holy cow, this is fresh bread, and it's from like Nextdoor. And he's like, oh, I didn't think anything of it. It was just a hobby he was doing. But he slowly started selling bread. And then he started making like bagels and muffins and cookies. So now he's starting to run a small bakery out of his kitchen. And that is now his full-time job. He's now spawned from that to like sort of setting up a little local small business. And he's taken something that was his passion, moved from a tough time to a great time. And he really credits Nextdoor for a lot of that, because it gave him the ability to find that local set of neighbors. And the neighbors love it. They want to support the local business. They want to support him. He lives in the neighborhood. It's easier to get bread if you walk 10 houses down than it is if you have to drive 10 minutes. So it's kind of a win-win-win. Yeah, it's kind of great.
Sounds like it. What are some of the latest features that you're offering? And I think Microsoft is one of your partners too now, right?
Yeah. Wow. So we are, there's a few things that we've launched that we're really excited about. One is the concept of connections. So we launched that just a few months ago, where one of the things we learned is once you join Nextdoor, you're part of this large neighborhood and you have the whole group of your neighbors. But we started to realize that people actually have interpersonal relationships inside the neighborhood that are equally important. So for me, for example, I have 2 kids, a 16-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl, and their friends' parents are important to me. Like, I know them, they live in my neighborhood, and I want to be connected to them. I don't know that I want to see all their Facebook photos. I definitely don't want to see all their LinkedIn updates, but I want to stay connected, because in the local neighborhood, I do care about what's happening and what their thoughts are about the local information. So it really is this place to connect to people that are important to you, that are a subset of your neighborhood that are important to you. So connections is a big thing that we ramped out. A second big thing, like you actually brought up, was the Microsoft partnership. So a lot of the content that we have on that platform, where people start to share, the local news about what's happening locally. The biggest thing is it's not just about the news. We really get opinions from neighbors about what they think about the news, right? So, some news articles written, we'll use this sort of, new tax law example. And a lot of people will start to talk about, is that book good or bad? And how does that help the local neighborhood? And, it's a really healthy debate. And what Microsoft recognizes is that we're really the source of local information. And so on their MSN website, you can actually find, when you go to the local area, you can find Nextdoor content show up on MSN. And this is kind of like the beginning of that partnership where we're just, finding ways where we can take the local information that we have and help more people learn about what's happening in their neighborhoods, even if they're not directly on Nextdoor.
Really interesting. I used to work in local radio for years before I worked in New York, and know the importance of community news, what's going on, and there certainly needs to be some help in that regard. So along these lines, how do you promote interactions that are, I guess, what we could call neighborly during a time when there can be a considerable divide?
Yeah, our entire purpose as a company starts around this. So we actually, our purpose is to cultivate a kinder world where everyone has a neighborhood to rely on. And so that sense of kindness is central to us. Actually, if you look at our stock ticker symbol, it's not NXDR or something, it's kind. We actually purposefully chose that because we really do want to have a kinder world. And so now when we say kind, we don't mean that everything's rainbows and unicorns. The world is not all rainbows and unicorns. I think it's healthy for people to have debate and to have civil debate on the platform if they can do it in a healthy way. And so there are a couple key things that we've launched even in the last few months that are key to this. One is we really do something where we sort of proactively interrupt users. And I'll explain what I mean. So typically when people see something on the internet or on Nextdoor and they get angry, they're like, oh my God, I totally disagree with that. They kind of get wound up and they get ready to start commenting and saying something. The reason that happens is actually it's because our reptilian brain, like our brain from like way back here, is really telling us like react, something's wrong, like go into kind of attack mode. But if you can get them to stop and think, this is actually something we learned because we have a neighborhood vitality advisory board, which is this board that made up of industry experts as well as sort of academia experts that study the human brain, study interaction in social settings. They kind of taught us that, like, look, if you can get people to stop from the reptilian brain and come up to like the human brain and rationally think about, is this a good thing to do or not? And slow them down a little bit, you can kind of like get them to reset. So that's actually what we do. So when we start seeing either that the content that they're typing into the comment is inappropriate, or that the conversation is getting heated, and we can tell that the conversation is getting heated if people, if the rate of comments is getting really fast, usually, or if two people are going back and forth, but not a lot of other people are in the comment thread, you can start to kind of get a sense that like, oh, this conversation is turning bad. And what we do is we proactively slide up something that says, hey, are you sure you really want to say this? Is this how you want to show up in your neighborhood? And usually when we see that, over 40% of people stop and are like, yeah, I should change what I wrote. Or like, maybe I shouldn't post that at all. And so these simple interruptions, these simple aspects of trying to help people learn when they're kind of moving, when they're thinking with their reptilian brain versus their like sort of front neural brain, has huge impacts, because it really does help people be like, well, I do have a point, but I don't need to say it that way. And so that's what we're really focused on. The other part that's actually really different about the way Nextdoor thinks about moderation from a lot of other networks is that we don't think that the best way to do it is with a central team. We actually have a community of volunteers. We have over 260,000 volunteers in local neighborhoods who are members of Nextdoor, that when you report something and say, hey, this is something that was kind of hurtful, it wasn't really nice, or the tone wasn't great, it actually goes to those local neighbors and those local neighbors vote on it. And they say, oh, this is what I think is good or bad. And then based on the vote, we decide whether to take it down or not. And so that notion that, something that may be considered not okay in the middle of Iowa might be completely fine in the middle of New York. It allows the neighborhood to have its differences versus kind of one rule to rule the world. And so that's also like a really different way that we think about sort of the specialness of local and neighborhoods.
And is there other moderation of other potential inappropriate behavior?
Yeah. So if there's content that's really, really harmful to you, things that are against the law and really violate our terms of service, like, hate violence or misinformation, then we kind of jump in and when it's reported, it goes to our internal teams and we take it out. So we kind of have a whole gradient. I think a lot of the conversation in the public sphere is around that stuff that's really harmful, the really bad stuff. And while there's honestly very little of that on our platform, primarily because every single person that signs up, we verify them. We make sure that they're actually living at the address that they live at, a physical address. We do that both through physical postcards, but also with partnerships with third parties where we kind of do background checks and stuff like that to make sure you're a real person. So as soon as we know it's a real person, that it's your real name, and you're communicating with people right around you, there's a level of like the really bad stuff kind of doesn't really happen on the platform. Violating laws level of stuff doesn't happen on the platform at any scale. And so we actually are way more focused on the next level, up that sort of Maslow's level of hierarchies, which is the kind of hurtful stuff, which is, I don't like the way they said it. I can't believe they're complaining. Can they say it in a better way? Can they be good humans? Can they be kind? And that's where the community starts to kind of weigh in.
So what's the vision for the future here of Nextdoor and the roles that it can play?
It really does come to starting with our purpose and then going to our strategy. So our purpose, as I said, was really to cultivate a kinder world where everyone has a neighborhood to rely on. And that you'll see that word everyone in sort of that environment. We kind of want to achieve that purpose by developing what we call an active valued community, the sense of people who have a closeness and a community and a neighborhood feel, and really feeling like you can be part of a community that's going to make the community better, where it's active and it's valued. It's something that you can depend on in some way. So where are we going from here? Well, we're at over 70 million neighbors now. And, our goal is to just kind of go down that everyone path. 1 in 3 households is amazing. I would love to be in 2 and 3 households in the US over time. We're also growing internationally. I told you we're in 11 countries already. We're heavily entrenched in the UK and London and Canada and Australia. We're starting to expand out in some of the Western European countries like Spain and France. So just starting to grow. What we're really seeing is that the product and the concept of a local neighborhood community really works. And it's not even something new that we need to teach people. It's the original community. That's how people used to live. And so the fact that they have it up now, as soon as somebody discovers it exists, they're like, oh yeah, I wanted that. And they get on and they immediately kind of know what to do because they see all the other neighbors doing it in the platform. So, where are we headed? We're headed in taking something that we think is at a pretty good scale and taking it to the rest of the world. Yeah.
And of course, people would want to know, it is a business. So how you monetize it? How do you make your money?
Yeah, great question. So we make money through ads. We make money through two different sort of constituents who do ads. So one is, larger businesses like McDonald's or Home Depot that really come out of the platform and they want to be part of the local community. So the best way to kind of think about it is sometimes when we hear McDonald's or when we hear Home Depot, we think big brand. We think this like big giant brand. Oh my God, McDonald's is huge. But the reality is the local McDonald's, the manager of the local McDonald's probably lives in your neighborhood. Everybody that works at that local McDonald's probably lives in your neighborhood. And so it's less about the mega brand and it's more about the local presence of that brand. So we see that with like Home Depot or Target or, here in the Bay Area, Safeway, like it's local, it's the local presence of large brands. The other big set of people who advertise on the platform are small businesses. And I said small businesses are already, we really see them as part of the neighborhood. They really are part of the neighborhood. A lot of small businesses, and they do it to give out deals and coupons. So, if you want to, they have like let's say it's a local baker and they want to say, hey, there's a sale running 10% off right now for all croissants if you show up before 7 a.m. Great. That's the kind of like deal coupon that you see. And, probably the biggest thing we hear is that it doesn't feel very different than the type of content that's already on the platform that's happening from neighbors, because small businesses are posting some of those ideas for free to the local neighborhood. And neighbors are already asking for, hey, where's the best place to buy a tool? And Home Depot shows up, or where's the best place, who's the best electrician or somebody plumber, and, Roto-Rooter shows up. So it feels very in line with what the community is engaging and interacting around.
And the place where people can find you, I guess, is right next door.
Yeah, that's great. I love that line. I'm going to use that going forward now, Fred.
Terrific. Kiran Prasad, thank you so much for taking the time with us.
No, thank you so much. Such great questions. It's awesome to be able to kind of help more people learn about Nextdoor.